ones. I see Maxine Waters, a lowlife. I see, all these people. They don't love our country. They don't love our country. We want great education. So they rank 40 countries in education. We're ranked dead last, dead last. But the good news is we're number one in one category. You know what that is? Cost per pupil. We spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. You look at Norway, Denmark, Sweden, various countries all up and down. Finland, China does very well in education. And then you look at us. We spend much more money than they do per pupil.
Just recently, Trump claimed that China's education system is better than America's. But is that really the case? While he's pushing to eliminate the Department of Education, China is cranking out engineers and scientists like a well-oiled machine. These two approaches couldn't be more different, and they reveal a lot about what each country prioritizes. So is China really ahead when it comes to education? Let's break it down. In 2024, Trump's administration renewed its push to abolish the Department of Education, a move seen as part of his broader campaign promises. To Trump, the department represents government overreach, and he argues that education should be left to individual states, promoting local autonomy. This idea closely mirrors the radical reforms of Argentina's President Javier Milei, who in 2024 dismantled his country's education ministry, slashing central authority and granting schools greater control. What's particularly interesting is that Trump has publicly stated that China does education very well, a remark that stands in subtle contrast to his usual America First rhetoric. Trump's recognition of China's education model likely stems from two realities: China's sheer scale in producing STEM talent and the mounting challenges facing American education. China graduates over 5 million students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM fields annually, 1/3 of the global total. Meanwhile, the U.S. is grappling with a STEM talent shortage, with Chinese nationals making up less than 10% of America's high-skilled tech immigrants. This talent gap is reshaping the global competition for innovation and may have informed Trump's perspective on education reform. If Trump succeeds in abolishing the Department of Education, the U.S. education system could face three major disruptions. First, federal education funding would be redistributed, likely putting disadvantaged students at even greater risk. Public and private school funding disparities in the U.S. are already stark. Students from low-income families receive just 1/6 of the education spending of their wealthy counterparts. Without federal financial support, local governments may struggle to balance resources, deepening inequality. Second, without national education standards, states would be left to set their own policies, leading to vast differences in quality. Take the No Child Left Behind Act. While widely criticized for overemphasizing standardized testing, it at least provided a baseline for measuring educational outcomes. If federal oversight is removed, poorer states may lower their standards due to budget constraints, creating education deserts where students receive vastly inferior schooling. Third, the education system could become increasingly fragmented. Argentina's experience offers a cautionary tale. After dismantling its central education ministry, local governments gained autonomy, but budget cuts made it nearly impossible to sustain long-term programs like teacher training and literacy initiatives. If the U.S. follows suit, national projects aimed at STEM development and educational equity could become difficult to maintain, weakening America's long-term competitiveness. China's education model has produced results in large part due to its structured system. At the K-12 level, a rigorous curriculum and high-intensity learning environment build deep foundational knowledge and resilience. The OECD's PISA assessment, a global benchmark for student performance, consistently ranks Chinese students in the top 3 for math, science, and reading. This emphasis on core competencies has fueled the country's higher education system and technological breakthroughs. One of China's biggest strengths is its ability to turn education into real-world innovation. By 2023, Chinese universities had generated over $28 billion in technology transfer agreements, with nearly 20,000 academic-industrial collaboration platforms. Fields like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and aerospace have seen homegrown research teams drive major breakthroughs. A team of researchers born in the 1990s at Tsinghua University is advancing China's domestic semiconductor technology, While at battery giant CATL, 70% of R&D personnel are Chinese-trained masters and PhD holders. These cases highlight how China's education system effectively aligns with industry demands. Moreover, China has accelerated efforts to address traditional weaknesses through policy guidance. For example, with a 3.6 trillion yen investment in R&D, basic research has grown at an average annual rate of 10.5%, while digital education initiatives have reached 400 million K-12 students, helping to narrow the urban-rural education gap. These measures have preserved the efficiency of the exam-based selection system while also leveraging technology to explore personalized education pathways. Despite its successes, China's education system faces structural challenges. An overemphasis on exams remains a major concern. The high-stakes Jiaokao college entrance exam system prioritizes rote memorization over creativity and problem-solving. A 2023 survey found that 60% of Chinese employers believe graduates have strong theoretical knowledge but weak practical skills. Resource disparities also persist. While urban schools in Beijing and Shanghai experiment with advanced education models like project-based learning, rural areas face a severe shortage of qualified teachers, some with faculty turnover rates as high as 25%. This imbalance risks widening the education gap. Additionally, student mental health is an increasing concern. China's intense academic pressure has led to rising rates of teenage depression. Some provinces report that high school students average less than 6 hours of sleep per night. Balancing academic rigor with student well-being remains a long-term challenge for education reform.
Wake up! Wake up!
America's education system presents its own paradoxes. On one hand, elite universities and research institutions continue to attract top global talent. Silicon Valley remains unrivaled as an innovation hub. On the other, the decline of public education is threatening the nation's long-term competitiveness. One major problem is over-reliance on standardized testing. Since No Child Left Behind, schools have cut funding for arts and physical education to prioritize test prep. Meanwhile, the wealthiest families bypass public schools altogether, maintaining an elite education track through expensive private institutions. A Stanford study found that students from the top 1% of income earners are 77 times more likely to attend an Ivy League school than those from the bottom 20%. Skyrocketing college costs further deepen inequality. With tuition averaging $40,000 a year and student loan debt exceeding $1.7 trillion, many talented students are forgoing STEM careers in favor of shorter, job-focused programs. This talent misallocation directly weakens America's tech pipeline. Whether Trump's radical proposal succeeds depends on political battles and public consensus. From a legal standpoint, eliminating the Department of Education would require congressional approval, something Democrats would fiercely oppose. Even within the GOP, moderates may hesitate to dismantle a system embedded in federal aid programs and civil rights protections since 1979. From a practical standpoint, decentralization doesn't necessarily solve core problems. Argentina's case suggests that without federal coordination, local governments may struggle to maintain consistent education quality. In the U.S., wealthier states could innovate, but poorer regions might spiral further into decline. Trump's acknowledgement of China's education strengths contradicts his own policy vision. China's success hinges on centralized long-term planning, from universal K-12 education to national STEM initiatives. If the U.S. abandons federal oversight, replicating China's large-scale achievements will be nearly impossible. There's no simple answer to which system is better. China has leveraged rigorous selection and strategic investment to gain an edge in global technology. The U.S., meanwhile, must find a balance between educational freedom and maintaining its competitive strengths. Trump's plan to tear down the old system may or may not lead to something better, But whatever happens, it will shape the future of America's workforce and its position in the global talent race. At the same time, China, despite its successes, must remain vigilant. Over-reliance on its current model without continued reform could pose risks of its own. Sustainable progress requires a careful balance between efficiency and innovation, equity and excellence. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps keep these discussions going.